So we're going to start now by talking to Peter Gedil, whose son was killed on 9/11 in the World Trade Center. Let me ask you, Peter, should Americans fear Islam?
Well, I'd like nothing better than to say that I was not afraid of Islam. I'd like nothing better than to say to my Muslim friends and fellow citizens, welcome to America. I'm glad you're here. Make yourself at home. But the fact is that we have too many history of Muslim terror attacks, and many of them so-called homegrown, second generation. And I think to ignore that threat is to ignore the history of Islam.
Ask you, Reverend Graham, you have said, and you said not so long ago, that President Bush and President Obama made a great mistake when they said that Islam is a peaceful religion. It's not, you said. There's no evidence in its history. It's a religion of hatred. It's a religion of war. And repeatedly you've said that Islam is wicked and evil. Why do you say that?
First, Christian, I understand what the Muslims want to do in America. They want to build as many mosques, cultural centers as they possibly can so they can convert as many Americans as they can to Islam. And I understand that.
That's your position.
Sure, and I understand what they're doing. And I just don't have the freedom to do this in most Muslim countries. We can't have a church. We're not able to build synagogues. It's forbidden. But let me just say something about Islam. I love the Muslim people. But I have great difficulty with the religion, especially with Sharia law, and what it does for women, toward women, toward non-believers, the violence that is given under Sharia law.
Let me ask you, Robert Spencer, should America fear Islam, and why?
Well, Islamic jihadis point frequently. They actually consistently explain and justify their actions and try to make recruits among peaceful Muslims by pointing to texts of the Quran, the actions of Muhammad, and the teachings of Islamic law. And so this is something that moderate and peaceful Muslims have to confront, but instead they always just displace responsibility and blame the people who are calling attention to these things. And then, of course, you have even peaceful Muslims like the Imam Rauf advocating for Sharia, which does deny equality of rights to women. It does deny the freedom of speech. He even calls for restrictions on the freedom of speech. He even calls for restrictions on the freedom of speech in his book, What's Right with Islam. And, you know, you talk about that Islam doesn't allow for wife beating. Well, it's in the Quran
Robert Spencer,
to beat your wife. And also there's a television show in Saudi Arabia where they discuss the right implements to beat your wife with.
This side is obviously the side that says one shouldn't fear and that there are moderates and the whole religion should not be painted with the same brush. I want to, though, now go to Amjad Chowdhury in London. You have said that you think there should be Islamic domination. Why shouldn't people be afraid of that?
Well, let me just say that Islam has a solution for all of the problems that mankind faces. If you want to live at peace with Muslims, we are quite willing to live at peace with you. But let us remember that history did not begin on 9/11. Before 9/11, the American government bombed Sudan and Afghanistan. They were supporting the pirate state of Israel. So 9/11 was a reaction. You know, I think that we need to get away from the stereotyping. And this idea that you have moderate Muslims and you have radical Muslims is complete nonsense. A Muslim is the one who submits to the command of the Creator. If he submits, he is a practicing Muslim. If he is not, then he should be practicing.
I have to disagree with him because Islam is a religion of pluralism that embraces all religions, and it also embraces different interpretations. This is why we have so many schools of thought. What Anjum is talking about is an exclusivist view of Islam, which is my way or the highway. And my interpretation is the only interpretation.
You know, it's very easy for people to justify the fact that they're not practicing. I mean, this lady in your studio, she should be covering with the khimar and jilbab. She's obviously not practicing. And there are many people who are justifying, the inability to practice the Sharia to say, well, I have a different form of religion. You know, people want to claim that they're vegetarians and they're eating big beef burgers. You know, you cannot be a non-practicing vegetarian. Therefore, similarly, you know, if you're a Muslim, you submit to the Sharia.
He's telling the truth.
You see, Reverend Graham says you're telling the truth. So do you agree with Reverend Graham and our panelists on this side that Americans should fear Islam?
We do believe as Muslims the East and the West will one day be governed by the Sharia. Indeed, we believe that one day the flag of Islam will fly over the White House. Indeed, there's even a narration of the Prophet where he said, the day of judgment will not come until a group of my ummah conquer the White House.
Do Reverend Graham think that this Islamic radical who we just heard from is agreeing with you?
not agreeing with me, but his position, what I was talking about Sharia law, what scares me. And he is speaking that Sharia law needs to govern the entire world. And that is the goal of the Islamists, this country.
Agreeing with Franklin Graham is Ayan Hershey Ali, who joined us by satellite. She was raised a Muslim in Somalia, but fled her country and renounced her religion. She has since received death threats for condemning radical Islam.
Islam is partly a political ideology, and a brilliant example of that is someone like Amjad Chaudhry, who just joined us. And I think that it is very important that not only Americans, but Westerners in general and Muslims, modern Muslims, the ones who identify themselves as modern Muslims, take the threat of the agents of political Islam very, very seriously. And every day they win hearts and minds. They establish Muslim centers. Their movement was very little, but it is growing rapidly, and it's very, very dangerous.
Pew Research researched the young males coming out of mosque in America, and they went across the United States. Between 18 and 33, that 1 out of 4 agreed with suicide bombings. Now, this is Pew Research, okay? These are not my numbers. You can check it for yourself. This is a frightening statistic, and I believe the mosque in America, the majority of the mosques in this country have been hijacked by the radicals and the Islamists who want to destroy.
I just want to go to Reza Aslan, who's busy shaking his head from Amsterdam.
No, I was just enjoying the conversation, and I think that Amjad and Franklin Graham ought to go grab a cup of coffee because they see the world in exactly the same way. There is no such thing as one Christianity, no matter what Franklin Graham thinks. There is no such thing as one interpretation of Islam, no matter what Amjad thinks. The key here, though, is we're talking about the United States of America. We're talking about the 6 to 8 million Muslims in the United States who are thoroughly integrated into every level of American society. A community that is wealthy, that is moderate, that has thoroughly absorbed American values and made it their own, and feels completely comfortable reconciling their Islamic values with American values.
Okay.
To constantly compare American Muslims to Saudis or Iranians it's a ridiculous comparison.
All right.
All right, good evening to the both of you. Brigitte, I'll start with you. You say that large numbers of American Muslims support Sharia blasphemy laws. How does one determine that this is actually true?
Wenzel Strategies did polling data and asked highly educated American Muslims. We're talking Harvard graduates, Columbia, very well accomplished, financially successful. We're not talking about Somali taxi drivers who can barely speak English driving taxis in New York City. And these highly intellectual and educated Americans said that 58% of them do not believe that criticizing Islam or the Prophet should be protected under the First Amendment. About 45% of them said it should be criminalized, and 12% of them believed that actually people should be killed for if they would say anything bad about the Prophet. And these are highly educated Americans here on American streets. This is not some radicals in Pakistan.
Frank, what's your take on that?
Well, Brigitte is, of course, absolutely right, and it's all the more stunning that our own president is engaged in basically trying to enforce Sharia blasphemy laws himself. You may remember, Judge, that back in September of 2012, shortly after the attacks in Benghazi, he went to the United Nations General Assembly and said, quote, "The future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam," unquote. That is basically the meme of these various jihadists and those who adhere to Sharia. And I just wanted to make this one point. Several of your guests have spoken about President al-Sisi of Egypt's very impressive appearance at Al-Azhar University on the 1st of January. And the thing that is so striking to me about that is he went right to what some call the Vatican of Islam to make that statement, which means that it's not just radicals or extremists, certainly not all Muslims, but the authorities of Islam embrace not only the Sharia blasphemy, the capital offense, as Brigitte says, but the whole program and seek to impose it on the rest of us. And our president seems to be aligned with them, not with President al-Sisi, or for that matter, those of us who are standing up against it.
You know, Frank,
and if I can add one thing,
go ahead, Brigitte.
If I can add one thing, Judge, the Assembly of Muslim American Jurists, AMJA, also, which is a very respectable organization in the United States, very respected. They are very influential. They sit on university boards, Islamic mosques, imams, etc. They sanction the killing of any infidel who commits blasphemy against Islam. And these are the Assembly of American Muslim Jurists. I mean, this is how mainstream it is here in America.
Well, you know, when you talk about this thinking, I mean, you know, you've got these blasphemy laws and the Sharia, and now we're hearing about these no-go zones in Europe and Sharia courts in Europe. Is that a reality? I mean, are there as many as 700 of them, Frank? Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, there are 751, I think, is the latest count in France alone. These are areas in which the authorities dare not go because basically it's too dangerous for them. These are areas that are ruled effectively by Sharia. And the question is, are we on a different trajectory as far as these folks? The Muslim Brotherhood is the prime mover behind it. And I would suggest to you that it's not the case. We've done a booklet just recently on Sharia being introduced into our courts. It's available for free at securefreedom.org. I encourage people to look at it because, just as Brigitte says, it talks about this AMJA organization as a prime mover behind trying to get Sharia inculcated into our court systems, as the Brotherhood is trying to do really all of our civil society institutions for the express purpose of destroying Western civilization from within. That's a quote from them.
Okay, and Brigitte, of course, Act for America, your organization, American Law for American Courts. Talk about that.
Yes, we actually worked with Frank on that. And what we're trying to do, there's a law called American Laws for American Courts, which said no law that is not compatible with the Constitution of the United States should be allowed to be used in any American courtroom. And we're starting to pass that law. We passed it already in 9 states, and we are introducing it into 20 states this legislative session. We want people from all states watching this program to go to our website, actforamerica.org, and email us and get on our email list, so when we introduce that bill in your state, we want to be able to reach you to make sure this bill passes in your state.
To make sure, Brigitte, the idea that we have to pass a law to say American law and American courts, I mean, where are we? I mean, the Constitution is the law of the land, is it not?
It should be, it is, but with the rise of Islamic immigration, we are starting to seeing the introduction of Sharia law. Actually, Frank, on their website, the Center for Security Policy, have documented in detail the different Sharia cases in American courtrooms in over 22 states. And I encourage people to go to that website and read the details and go to our website and get engaged.
Let me ask you another question here.
It's 35 states now. Yes, ma'am.
Do you expect to see no-go zones in the United States?
I think there are areas of the United States where it's already becoming a little bit sporty. You know, Dearborn, Michigan is one example. We've had populations of Muslims dropped in this country as refugees in areas they are not assimilating. They are becoming, I'm afraid, sort of ghettoized, and that is an incubator for precisely this problem of Sharia exclusive areas. And again, I want to emphasize, not all Muslims subscribe to this or want to impose it on anybody else. But the trouble is the authorities do, and most of those who are being brought here, whether it's Somalis or Syrians or Bosnians or others, are bringing that with them as their preferred practice. And it is the formula for, I believe, no-go zones and a lot worse down the road.
You know, it sounds like these no-go zones, to the extent that they exist or are coming here, are nothing more than caliphates within the United States or within the country that they're in. Yes?
Indeed. I think that's the idea, is they're going to try to create a vehicle for establishing exclusivity. It's an Islamic supremacist program. That's what it is at its core.
All right, Brigitte and Frank,
and we already
thanks so
have
much.
compounds in the country. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much to both of you.
Thank you.
And up next...
All right, check out this website. 4 Christian missionaries were at an Arab festival over in Dearborn, Michigan, when they had a huge run-in with police. They said they did nothing wrong. They were just handing out copies of the Gospel of John, but police cuffed them, arrested them for disorderly conduct. and you're seeing what happened. Joining us right now, one of the men who was arrested, David Wood, and his lawyer, Robert Muse, is also here. He's over in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Welcome to both of you. First off, David, why were you there working the camera?
I was there to have discussions, to discuss anything that anyone wanted to discuss. We like having conversations with Muslims. My friend Nabil is a former Muslim, and so we were there to engage in dialogue. And I noticed when we were there, since Nabil's a former Muslim, more people wanted to talk to him. So I just sort of stepped back and held a camera.
So you watched, you recorded it, and it was taken away from you, and you were jailed, and you were out. You were charged with breach of peace. When he walked over there, Robert, I guess he did disturb the peace for the Arab festival. They were not happy. Christians were showing up. Were they wrongly charged, in your mind?
The Christians were the only ones that were charged, and you know, it's interesting. It wasn't the Christians that were breaching the peace. It was the hecklers, the Muslims who were actually making threats to them, who were shouting profanity. And the constitutional response for the police department is not to silence the peaceful speaker, the Christians, but to silence the hecklers. And what the police did here is they essentially effectuated the hecklers' veto, and that's a problem. And instead, what we have now, we have 4 Christians who are locked up and spent an evening in the jail for doing nothing more than expressing their religious beliefs. You know, in our country, we're not governed by Sharia law, we're governed by the Constitution, and we have a First Amendment that protects those rights.
And David, from your understanding, you're just exercising freedom of speech, right?
Yes, and actually, to be clear, I wasn't even speaking at all, and 3 out of the 4 of us who were arrested weren't speaking at all. We were standing there recording or listening. Only one of us was actually speaking, and we were all arrested.
Right. Is this more, were they adhering to Sharia law in their arrest? Because it doesn't seem to be going by our Constitution.
Well, I guess that was my point. Again, our Constitution protects the right to free exercise of religion, the right to freedom of speech. Under Sharia law, you don't have those particular rights. You know, it's probably not a coincidence that in a city where you have the largest Muslim population in the United States, that you have police who are persecuting Christians. You know, and this pattern of conduct has got to stop. You know, the Law Center, the Thomas More Law Center, we consider ourselves the sword and shield for people of faith. And we're breaking out the shield right now to defend these criminal charges, but we're also going to pull out the sword, and there will be a civil rights action.
Robert Muse will follow this. David Wood, thanks for joining us.
Can I eat this falafel? Yeah. What's the problem? I have no problem. Is that why? I have no problem with Muslims. Then why are you making all these videos? Why are you trying to make us look bad? I'm not trying to make you guys look bad. When we made the video last year, when we made the video last year, we made it explicitly clear that it was for security. We had an issue. Not everyone at the festival is security. Then we put up a video afterwards saying, we want to make this perfectly clear. We don't have any issue with the people there. We have no issue with the people at booths. We only have issue with people at security. So I got no issue with this. No, you didn't say that in the video. I was just saying Islamic people in the community are just all bad. My mom is Muslim. My dad is Muslim. My sister's Muslim. All my cousins are Muslim. I love Muslims. I got no problem with the Muslim community. It was the security guards here that were in the video. So you came here looking for trouble with the security guards? Why decide to make all these videos? That's a good question. We came here last year, and we saw a pamphlet that we had a question about. So we went to the booth who gave us the pamphlet, and we said, hey, can we ask you a question about this? And they said yeah. They said yeah, you can ask a question. I don't understand. I didn't see you at the Spirit Festival. So why are you here another year in a row? I just happened to be here last year. It was like my first time here. Why are you here? Because we want to see if it's going better this year. We wanted to see if it's better this year than it was last year. Are you sure about that? Yeah. I think you're looking for more trouble. We're not looking for trouble. We want to see things are better. And generally, things have been better. Security hasn't been hitting us. Security hasn't been assaulting us. So things are better. I'm glad about that. And we're talking right now, and no one's stopping us from talking. So I'm glad about these things. This is the very reason I'm here, to make sure you and I can talk. So you're here to preach? I would like to preach. We haven't even gotten to that point yet. So preach to me then. Preach to you? I would love to preach to you. Why is Christianity better than Islam? Because Jesus Christ did not claim to be just a prophet. He said he was here to receive worship. He did receive worship. He forgave people's sins. He miraculously healed people. He died on the cross and rose from the dead. These truths have changed my life, have absolutely changed my life. And I find it so important to let people know about these things that I will tell anyone and everyone who will listen. So I'm glad you asked the question.
Why is there more than one Biden? Why is it Allah? What makes Jesus greater than Allah?
Who? Okay, I got a bunch of you guys who are asking questions. So did like 4 of these guys. I want to.
A human. When was Jesus decided God?
What?
When was Jesus decided as a God?
That's an excellent question.
325 years after the Roman consul declared him as God.
No, people are worshiping Jesus as God less than a decade after his death.
That's not. How could Jesus be a God if he came like any of us came out of a woman? He came like any other man comes out of a woman.
Yeah. So in the Old Testament, we see a prophecy saying that a child will be born to you, and he will be the mighty God. So in the Old Testament, it actually says the mighty God will be born as a child to you. And in actuality, it can't just be like a half God. It actually says the everlasting Father, Aviad, will be born to you. So this is a prophecy we knew would happen.
Right, but how does God die? You said after his death, he was be God.
That's an excellent question. What we find in the New Testament is that in order for God to take our sins away from us, he can't just wave them away. If God were just to wave away sins, he wouldn't be a just God. So he takes our sins upon himself. He says, all right, I can't just wave these sins away. That wouldn't make me a just God. I'm going to pay those sins for you. That's how much he loves us. And so he comes into the world as a man, and he takes our sins for us. He does it all voluntarily. He doesn't have to do any of this.
Have you met Jesus yourself?
Say again? These are great questions, guys. I'm loving this. Anyone else have a question? Yeah.
Where in the Bible says, can you find in the Bible where it says, when Jesus says, I am God, worship me?
Well, in the Bible, when people...
I'll give you $100 in any Bible. There's 80 of them. If you find me...
Okay.
There's 80 Bibles, but there's only one.
Let me...
They change it.
Okay.
Are you legally allowed to take this mic? Let go of the mic. Are you legally allowed to take it? Yes. Let go of the microphone. Okay.
Remarks about Sharia law were made at a Tea Party rally, and now Dearborn's mayor is setting the record straight. The mayor of Dearborn is fighting back, taking on Sharon Angle, a Senate candidate from the state of Nevada, who recently suggested that Islamic religious law, or Sharia law, has taken hold in Dearborn. Mayor John O'Reilly went on CNN with Anderson Cooper Monday night to talk about his distress over Angle's comments.
No, there's no Sharia law in Dearborn, Michigan. In fact, there's hardly any Sharia law in the Middle East. Only about 3 countries actually still carry that out.
At a recent rally, Nevada Senate candidate Sharon Angle said, quote, Dearborn, Michigan and Frankfort, Texas are on American soil and under constitutional law, not Sharia law, and I don't know how that happened in the United States. It seems to me there is something fundamentally wrong with allowing a foreign system of law to even take hold in any municipality or government situation in our United States, end quote. On Monday, Mayor O'Reilly sent a letter to Angle telling her in part that she's been misled about Dearborn and that Muslims actively participate in community events celebrating America.
Has there been an effort by anyone in Dearborn to get Sharia law instituted?
Oh, no. It isn't even talked about in Dearborn. This is an invention of some people who have... as their goal, I mean, they believe that the Muslim faith is a false faith, it's dishonest, and they really believe at the heart of it, by their own avocation, that if Muslims won't convert, they should be removed from America.
And Mayor O'Reilly has now invited Angle to visit Dearborn for herself. No word if she plans to take him up on that offer. Reporting live in Dearborn, Kimberly Craig, Channel 7 Action News.
God in heaven gave you his son, not Buddha and not Muhammad. Muhammad is not the son of God. Only Jesus Christ is the son of God. You reject Jesus as the Savior of God. You reject Jesus and Calvary, the cross, the Son of the living God. Your prophet is unclean. Your prophet is a liar. Your prophet is an unclean prophet who lied to you, and you believe the lie. You reject the truth. You Messiah. You reject the Savior. You reject what Calvary offers for you. As you reject the Son of the living God.
Look at this. Kidding me.
If everyone here, someone could get hurt, you already have blood on your face.
In fact, my attorney said they did not. And so what happened, the reason why this is going on now is because of what happened last year. What happened last year is you allowed it to escalate into this. And so you guys just lost a lawsuit on free speech and you want to do it again.
Okay. We need to leave.
Well, I don't think we're going to go anywhere.
Why don't you get us the bullpen that we asked for in the email?
Okay, well, that's a free speech zone, and the Chamber of Commerce decided that they did not want a free speech zone.
You're here to protect our rights.
I'm here to protect everybody.
And keep safety. Get us a bullpen.
And where were you when the bottles were flying? And
you're grabbing people.
Well, no, there's officers that actually turned the other way. I mean, they didn't want to get involved.
No, you are a danger to the public safety. You're disorderly.
I would assume, 200 angry Muslim children throwing bottles would be more of a threat than a few guys with signs.
All right, hang on a second.
He's rewarding riotous behavior. If they make us leave now, they reward riotous behavior. Every time they want somebody to leave, they'll just create a riot, knowing that then the cops will get rid of them if they cause a riot.
You need to leave this video.
Again, I just want to make it happen.
Yes.
So if we don't leave, you're saying we will.
If you don't leave, we're going to cite you for disorder. You're creating a disturbance in the country. Look at your people here. Look at, this is crazy. And let's go.
And you would think we'd be complaining, but we're not. Well, we're not the one complaining. We're not the one phoning 911.
We asked you if you were assaulted.
Doc, you're killing me, Doc.
All right.
You've been a gentleman. Okay, you kidding?
We're going to go ahead and get our vehicle and have it come down the alley. But
we're going to make sure you get there safe. Let's go back here a little bit so we can control this mess.
So we'd be arrested if we don't leave, is what you're saying.
You've been cited for disorder.
You're just rewarding them for riotous behavior. You're rewarding riotous behavior. You're teaching that crowd that if they riot, then they're rewarded for their rioting by kicking out the people they don't want. You should have let those missionaries pass out gospel tracts. Should have let those missionaries pass out gospel tracts. Now you created a situation in your city where all they have to do is create a riot and they'll get whatever they want. They'll get whatever they want by causing a riot. That's what you're teaching them.
Dearborn, Michigan. Now, I went to a conference in Dearborn, Michigan. It's the epicenter, I suppose, of the Arab community in the United States of America. Some very worrying things are taking place. The police are collaborating in this in Dearborn, Michigan. There have been terrible cases. There's one. We're not going to let these sort of issues go. Other people might say, no, don't talk about it. That's not what we do here. Of a group of guys, very peaceful, holding up signs in Dearborn, Michigan. Might not approve of the signs, so what? Ignore people you don't agree with. But they were attacked, they were stoned. I think they probably would have been lynched if there hadn't been some police around eventually. Why did you put this video out, and who exactly are the United West? What is this organization?
Yeah, the United West is about 6 years old. We are a counterterrorism educational organization, basically defending the U.S. Constitution, defending the right of the State of Israel to exist, and defeating the Muslim Brotherhood, Sharia-compliant Islam here in the United States and other places in the West.
Right. Now, the video, I think that video would have shocked many people in Canada because we assume that in the United States of America, you are absolutely committed to freedom of speech. And what we saw there was a group of completely peaceful guys who were physically assaulted. But then this is what it just is extraordinary. The police not only do nothing really to protect them, but they then lie through their teeth. They say, we can't give you a couple of officers to look after you, but they stop them on their way, when they're leaving the event. About 14 cops stop them in several cruises to give them a hard time.
It's mind-boggling, Michael, and it's been out just a couple of days. It's getting about 150,000 views a day right now. It's number 13 in worldwide viral videos, number 1 on the Christian video blog. It is infuriating. It is a graphic illustration of the civilization jihad that has come here to America in this town that our president, President Obama, hails and views as the epitome of Islamic paradise in America.
Has he used that term, Islamic paradise?
No, he hasn't used that term, but he also, on Obamacare, didn't use the term that it was a tax. So you have to read behind the lines, and we have footage of him giving a speech just 2 months earlier where he's speaking to a Muslim audience and Muslim leaders and all of this, saying his name, Barack Hussein Obama. I, Barack Hussein Obama, I'm here.
I see a lot of folks here who worked tirelessly on my 2008 campaign. Let's face it, you did not do it because you thought this was going to be a cakewalk. When you decide to support a candidate named Barack Hussein Obama.
So we know how to deconstruct the syntax of our president, and this is a city that he really views as a successful Islamic city.
Well, I mean, I certainly agree that he will use anything, can lie as well, to be re-elected, and so he will pretend to be a Christian, and I think pretend to be a Muslim, perhaps. I don't think he's either of those. But this is Dearborn, Michigan, which is particular and peculiar within North America, really, because of the enormous Arab-Muslim population. Is it confined? I mean, it's bad enough in Dearborn, but can we say this wouldn't happen anywhere other than Dearborn, Michigan?
No, we cannot say that. I'm seeing, and I'm one of the authors of a book called Sharia, the Threat to America, with the folks on Team B2 that include Frank Gaffney, Andy McCarthy, Jim Woolsey, and we do a lot of work on the Muslim Brotherhood in America. We're seeing this unique blending of the Arab Spring aggressive mentality with the endorsement of the Brotherhood by President Obama recently, inviting them into the White House, resulting in the Arab street in America becoming virulently violent and aggressive there in Dearborn, and we're seeing it in patches of other areas like South Florida, in some areas in Southern California, in Minneapolis. So it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have heard stories out of Dearborn. I know one happened. I spoke to the person who was involved. When, again, there were a group of people simply with a placard, a sign outside a Muslim center. The police were called by a Muslim group. The police officer spoke to the imam in Arabic privately and then went over to the protesters and said he was going to arrest them. But the cops we saw involved here, I don't think they were Muslim. I don't think they were Arab. Don't they have an instinct? Don't they think this is wrong? I mean, this is America. There's a constitution. These guys are merely standing there peacefully. We can't give them a hard time. We should be protecting them.
Well, you know, your Canadian view is a bit optimistic and idealistic in terms of the facts on the ground in Dearborn. Many of the police officers are Arabic, one in particular, one of the leaders. But the ones who were not, they recognize that they are living in a town that is run by Arabs, and in order to keep their job, they have to toe the line. We know this because last year, we didn't shoot this footage. We shot a lot of footage in Dearborn. Last year, we had a camera crew there. Our camera crew was assaulted. We have a pending case against two Muslim criminals. It's been like pulling teeth trying to get the police to prosecute these guys, but we're moving ahead doing it. And we've dealt with the Arab obstacle to Western civilization encroaching upon this banned area now, this no-go zone of Dearborn, Michigan.
You know, in Canada, we look at what is going on, and I think we have actually probably one of the more peaceful Islamic populations. We have had issues with attempts at terror. But, for example, when the Pope made his entirely valid statements in Germany, there were no protests. We've had one or two demonstrations. We have had problems with honor killings, but we don't seem to have such a physical aggression on the street that you're having now in the U.S.
Yeah, if you study the doctrines and the memorandum of the Muslim Brotherhood, I know this sounds like a Hollywood movie, but we have in our hand the memorandum of the Brotherhood. They have a 5-part civilization jihad process, and a lot of it is dependent upon the number of Muslims in a given geographic area. So you're spread out. The communities are spread out somewhat, but I guarantee you, as this occurs more and more unconfronted in the United States, the Arab community in Canada and the non-Arab Muslim community are going to start seeing their brothers and sisters down here. There's going to be communication, and you're going to see the testing of your culture, whether or not you have the resistance to stand against the civilization jihad. That's the issue.
You know, I suspect you may be right, because people who think this is extreme, if you look at the cases of Britain, France, Holland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Belgium, it seems to be a very similar theme. Look, I appreciate your time. We'll have you back on the show. Thank you so very much indeed.
Thank you, Michael. Take care, and God bless your work.
Hey, how big's your trailer?
Really?
20-footer or 40-footer?
It's not worth it, bro. Hold on,
He's got a 40-foot trailer.
He doesn't even have a 40-foot trailer, bro.
It's a double wide.
See right there. What's going on in the blue? What's going on in the blue? It says Islam is a religion of blood and murder.
What did it say?
It says Islam is a religion of blood and murder.
Of blood and murder?
Murder.
Murder?
Islam is not murder. Islam is not murder.
Well, can apostates be killed?
No one should be killed. They should just be proven wrong. This is just a waste of time and a waste of...
So tell me, what's the problem with these guys here that's causing all this?
The problem is they're causing hatred between this community.
Now, what are they doing to cause hatred?
You're seeing what they're doing, man.
I don't.
They're going against a religion that is
But they believe, I only care what you believe. Why are they even significant to you?
I just don't like the fact that they're causing problems between this community.
What kind of problem?
Let me tell you something, man. We had this festival for a lot of years.
Yeah.
We never had this. Everybody comes out, they have fun. It's a multicultural. Every culture comes out, they have fun, and they go back home. So, this is the first time we see drama and trouble like this.
So
who's causing it? Is it us or them?
Well, I don't define the trouble for me. Define the trouble.
What is the trouble, man? When you're bringing a whole SWAT team and bringing them just to guard something like this, this is basically... I don't even know why. I don't know why the police is protecting them for. Why don't they protect us?
What do they need to?
Why they have them in the middle?
What are they doing that requires protection for you?
What are they doing to get protection?
I mean, I don't understand what they're doing that's so offensive to Islam.
So, if I come, what are you? Are you a Christian?
What?
Are you a Christian?
No.
What are you?
What?
I'm
an atheist.
Come on, man.
Seriously.
Okay, for instance, you're a Christian. I come and tell you Jesus is a pedophile. You're not going to get offended? That's what they're doing. They're telling me my prophet.
Say I don't care
they're telling
what
me my
you think.
prophet, which is the last prophet that was in this earth. They're telling me he's a pedophile. You think I'm not going to get offended?
Well, then how do you deal with the offense? Do you just let it go, or do you attack?
Stand by them and try to create as much noise. I don't want them to be heard. Their message of the devil. That message is not coming from a religion. It's coming from a devil. That's exactly what they are.
His favorite wife, Aisha, Muhammad, was 51 years old when he married Abu Bakr Siddiq's daughter, and she was 6 years old. That's why we say Muhammad is a child molester, because, I'm sorry, his action is give him this title. We're not here to insult Muhammad. Muhammad insulted himself. But well, it's very clear. Honor killing is reality in Islam. As a matter of fact, without honor killing, Islam will not exist. If you study the history of Islam, we're assuming that everybody believed in Muhammad and Muhammad days. That's not true. Even Arabs, the Bedouins, if you go to Quran chapter 49 and verse 14, Allah's word in the Quran tells us that Bedouins, the Arabs, said, we believed. And then Allah is correcting them by telling Muhammad, say, you did not believe, but you surrendered, for faith never entered your hearts. So the Arab in Muhammad days did not believe in Muhammad. They surrendered to Muhammad, and that's what the word Muslim means. Muslim means surrender or submit. So Arab did not believe in Muhammad. The foreign countries around Mecca, around Saudi Arabia, did not believe in Muhammad. They could not even know what the Quran is talking about. And how Islam exists, the day Muhammad died, many of the Arab Muslims left Islam. As a matter of fact, 5 prophets show up on the day Muhammad dies. 5 people made themselves prophets. And Abu Bakr Siddiq, the first Khalifa, he literally is the one who brought Islam back to existence. Why? This is, by the way, the man whom Muhammad married his daughter. Abu Bakr Siddiq began what we call the apostation war. That is when Abu Bakr killed all those who left Islam. And believe it or not, from that day until today, honor killing is real. And honor killing is not a culture as some people try to present it. Honor killing is the teaching of Allah in the Quran, chapter 6 and verse 151, where Allah said, do not kill the soul which Allah forbid, except for a just cause. The soul which Allah forbid to be killed is the Muslim soul, because Allah throughout the Quran allow the killing of any other soul. Wow. As a matter of fact, that's fit with the teaching of the entire Quran and the Hadith. Muhammad said, I have been commanded to engage in war with people until they testify to the fact there is no God but Allah, and I am His messenger. So if you don't believe in Islam, if you don't say the Shahada, then Muslims have the right to kill you. But the Muslim soul cannot be killed except in 3 cases. You go to Sahih Muslim, Muhammad said, the blood of the Muslim cannot be shed except in 3 cases. Murder, that if a Muslim kill a Muslim, not a Jew or a Christian. We are commanded, Muslims are commanded to kill the Jew and the Christian. 9:29, 9:5, and in many verses throughout the Quran. If a Muslim commit adultery, and if the Muslim apostate, the third reason, Muslim must be, his blood must be shed, Muslim must be killed if he or she leave Islam. So you're talking about ministering to the Muslim and they come to Christ, they will be killed by their own father, mother, son, daughter, or the Muslim community.
This hour, fathers and brothers murdering daughters and sisters.
He said, I believe in my heart I did the right thing.
Killers with a twisted sense of honor and shame.
They from Pakistan, they're not speaking English to me, they're not telling me nothing.
Did their faith also lead them to kill?
The reason he's giving is that you were a bad Muslim girl.
A crime with roots in tribal lands. And now it's come here.
Is there any doubt in your mind that these were honor killings?
None at all.
Murder in the family. Honor killing in America.
The practice of honor killings tragically occurs in other parts of the world, but is almost unheard of here in the United States. Until a case of a young woman in Arizona that had some wondering if the practice may have moved here.
A 48-year-old unemployed truck driver, Falah Amalaki, a married father of 7, a man with no criminal record, rammed his Jeep into 2 women. Amalaki sped away from the scene, leaving the 2 severely battered women on the pavement. Eyewitness Chanel Nakamoto.
I heard just the sound of an engine speeding up, just I heard a thud. I saw a girl laying in the rocks, face down.
One of Amalaki's victims was his 20-year-old daughter, Noor. According to investigators, she had left an arranged marriage in Iraq several years earlier and had moved out of her parents' home after constant fighting about her lifestyle. The attack left Noor in a coma. 2 weeks later, doctors pronounced her clinically brain dead. Her family took her off life support.
The mystery is why, and what would possess a father to do something like this to his daughter.
Investigators believe that Noor Maliki may have been the victim of an honor killing.
When a young woman strays from what her family expects and she tries to stand up for what might be her legal rights, her family may react, retaliate by killing her or hurting her in order to avenge her misbehavior and clean its own honor, redeem itself in the face of the community.
Primarily occurring in parts of the Middle East, South Asia, and North Africa, cases of honor violence are now being found in Europe, Canada, and the United States. Experts have no handle on the exact number of cases, but worldwide the UN estimates that at least 5,000 women are murdered each year in the name of honor.
You know, you can talk to me.
Jasvinder Sangera works with survivors of forced marriages and honor crimes. As for Falah Amalaki, he was charged with first-degree murder in the death of his daughter Noor, one of the first honor killings in the United States to be prosecuted.
Well, Jessica Mokdad's friends and family tell me that for the first time in her life, she was finally happy. She had friends and she had freedom, but her stepfather took that all away.
I was in Minnesota, and he called me, my husband, and said, I am turning myself into the police. I smacked Jessica.
But Warren police say Rahim Al-Fitlawi didn't slap his stepdaughter. He shot her. Police discovered 20-year-old Jessica Mokdad's lifeless body inside her grandmother's home.
I just stopped what I was doing and just sat down and started crying.
Jessica's friends say this tragic ending was years in the making. Mokdad grew up in Minnesota with her mother, Wendy Al-Fitlawi, and her stepfather.
He won't let her out of his eyesight.
He was too overbearing, over-controlling. Things I thought that were just normal, strict parenting, really, now when I look back, I say no, it was too much.
He forced her to wear a traditional headscarf instead of allowing her to make that decision on her own. And when she stopped wearing a scarf, friends say he became furious.
How are you feeling? 3 members of an Afghan family living in Toronto have been found guilty of what a judge described as, quote, a twisted concept of honor. A jury on Sunday found Mohammed Shafia, his wife Tuba Yahya, and their son Hamed each guilty of 4 counts of first-degree murder. Prosecutors say the defendants killed 3 teenage sisters and Shafia's first wife in a polygamous marriage, all because they dishonored the family and defied strict rules on dress, dating, socializing, and using the internet.
Well, welcome. We're talking with Tom Trento and Jerry Newcomb. We're talking about radical Islam, and welcome all of you as well. Tom, I'll start with you because you have been so intimately involved with the Rifka Berry case and been one of the people championing her cause nationwide, as you mentioned, with the appearance on Fox and Friends and tomorrow with CNN. I think there's a tendency maybe among even people who recognize the threat to look at her situation and say, well, that's unfortunate, but it's an isolated thing. Maybe she has kooky parents, maybe they're unusual. We need to understand that this is the tip of an iceberg that maybe people don't realize has shown up in this country.
Yeah, we're being drilled constantly by the mainstream media. In fact, at the press conference we had last Thursday in front of the courthouse, as Pamela Geller was making her statement, Phil Keating, the Fox correspondent who was on crutches, just interrupted her and said, that's not true.
I think the biggest problem at this point is that only one narrative is being put out by the media. There's absolute proof that she was a Christian, so the brainwashing and the cult status assigned to Christianity is really particularly disgusting. There's proof that she was abused. There's proof that she was threatened, physically threatened. We're not going to have that conversation.
Yeah, there is no proof. Here's a reporter taking issue with someone making a statement. He was so caught up in the fact that he didn't believe what we were saying that he had to interject himself, the media. So yes, we're making the point that honor killings as a result of apostasy is an Islamic doctrine. It's not argued anywhere from an authoritative perspective. We've had a variety of cases, a dozen or so over the past 10 years, and it's going in the direction that there's going to be more. So we're saying that's it, we're taking a stand, no more.
And Jerry, tell us about a couple of those cases, because I know we didn't have the opportunity to include all of them in the program, but Rifka's fear is based on history, even here in the United States.
Well, that's true. I mean, for example, in Texas last year, there were 2 girls, 2 daughters, that were killed by their father, who then fled to his native Egypt.
There were chilling final words from a 17-year-old girl who was bleeding to death with her sister in a taxi cab near Dallas today. Those words, oh my God, I'm dying. They are Amina and Sarah Saeed. They were both shot over and over and left to die outside Irving, Texas in a hotel on New Year's Day. And now police are releasing tapes of the cell phone call they made to 911 as cops tried frantically to find them.
911, what is your emergency? What's going on, ma'am?
I'm dying. Oh my God.
Okay, let me transfer you. I'm gonna get fire department on line, okay?
Well, police suspect the girl's father in the killing, the father who had apparently threatened one of the girls over her dating a non-Muslim boy.
And there was even a notorious case. Now, we didn't cover this in our documentary, but you were talking about this because you're from St. Louis, and maybe you could even tell that little story, though, about that girl where the father was killing her, and they captured that on tape, and you can hear her dialogue, and the father and the mother was even helping.
The tape begins with an argument, and Tina starts screaming. Her father says, "Keep still, Tina." Tina pleads, "Mother, please help me." Her mother responds, "Shut up." In fact, her mother was holding her down, Isa plunging a 9-inch kitchen knife into his daughter's chest. Tina continues screaming for several minutes, giving way finally to a quiet moan. Her father, exhausted, then utters these words, "Quiet, little one. Die, my daughter. Die." But Tina's own sisters would later say she was a bad daughter who deserved to die.
I only cry for my parents. She was very disobedient. This is a girl that she always had everything she needed and wanted. She had loving parents, caring and loving parents. She had anything she always wanted.
Let's talk about the media's role in this, because it seems that they've been cowed by CARE and some of the other organizations. Just the other day, I had gone to CNN.com, and I saw a headline there about a child bride who was trying to divorce her husband. She was 8 or 9 or something, some crazily young age, and he was elderly. And as soon as I saw the headline, I thought, Islam. Sure enough, I click on it. The story took place in Yemen. Interestingly, though, I read the entire story. The word Islam was never mentioned in the CNN.com story. The word Sharia did appear in the story about 10 paragraphs or 15 paragraphs, 2/3 or 3/4 of the way into the story. That's just one example, but it seems like there's an unwillingness on the part of the media here to name the culprit in many of these things.
The sad case, the facts of the situation are that there is a cultural war taking place. There's a war, a clash of civilizations. On one side, you have conservative Jewish people joining together with conservative Christians. Very, very unique. There's been a lot of tension in that relationship historically. Well, now, and I'm all over the United States and different parts of the world, and I'm seeing Jews and Christians uniting in a supernatural sense, if you will, taking a stand on principle, recognizing that there's a disagreement over, Yeshua, Mashiach, of course, over the Messiah, but saying, you know what, we'll argue about that a little bit. Right now, we're both going to get killed by this other guy. Let's go deal with that. That is over against a leftist democratic ideology, a democratist ideology infused with radical Islamist ideology. Those are the two groups. And the mainstream media have become, if you have 100 people that work for the mainstream media, 95 of them voted for Obama. They have become the marketing firm for this leftist ideology that's clashing with Jews and Christians. And this is their time to get their utopia built, and we stand in the way, people who stand on principle, believing that God exists. So that's the battle that's taking place. And I'll tell you what, it's a religious battle. You strip it all away, it really is.
And that's an issue here because, Jerry, you went to England to shoot parts of that program. And we didn't get to see all of the stuff that you did in England. What occurs there is what happens here down the road. And they're having that clash between radical Islam and sort of this squishy secularism, this political correctness now, and they're not winning the battle. Talk about what you found there and why they're short of the resources they need to combat the threat there.
Well, it's really an amazing thing, the degree to which Muslims have made advances in England. In a nation of 60 million people, about maybe 3 million are Muslims, and yet this is anecdotal, but just watching the television in the hotel room, you see lots of Muslim programming and so forth, and you don't see any Jewish preaching, but you don't see any Christian preaching. It's just amazing. And the recent head of the BBC now, of the religious programming for the BBC, is a Muslim. And the problem is getting in the area of free speech. For example, in a school, public school, the children were brought into an assembly, and this was run by Muslims in a public school, and the children all had to bow down and worship Allah in the school. And there were 2 Christian teenage girls that in good conscience could not participate in this, and so they ended up getting suspended. And so there are absolute clashes that are going on left and right over this, and it's the same type of marriage that you were talking about, where you have the secular humanists who don't believe in God working together with the radical Muslims, and the ones squeezed in the middle are decent conservative Christian people and Jews. And Israel, oh my goodness, Israel really is the canary in the coal mine. For example, in London and in other parts of Great Britain, in January during the Gaza protests, there were some protests. You can even see this on YouTube, where you can see the police, the British police, running away from the radical Muslims as they are protesting.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
And it will erupt in the United States, and the dividing line will be drawn within the next few months. In the U.S., you either stand with Israel or you don't, and Obama's going to be right in the middle. It's going to be a frightful situation.
Verses of violence in the Quran. Quran Book 2, verses 191 to 193. And slay them wherever ye find them, and drive them out of the places whence they drove you out, for persecution of Muslims is worse than slaughter of non-believers. But if they desist, then lo, Allah is forgiving and merciful, and fight them until persecution is no more, and religion is for Allah. Quran, Book 3, verse 151. Soon shall we cast terror into the hearts of the unbelievers, for that they joined companions with Allah, for which He had sent no authority. Quran Book 4, verse 89. They but wish that ye should reject faith, as they do, and thus be on the same footing as they. But take not friends from their ranks until they flee in the way of Allah from what is forbidden. But if they turn renegades, seize them and slay them wherever ye find them. And in any case, take no friends or helpers from their ranks. Quran Book 5, verse 33. The punishment of those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and strive to make mischief in the land is only this, that they should be murdered or crucified, or their hands and their feet should be cut off on opposite sides, or they should be imprisoned. This shall be as a disgrace for them in this world, and in the hereafter they shall have a grievous chastisement. Quran Book 8, verse 12. I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve. Therefore strike off their heads, and strike off every fingertip of them. Quran Book 9, verse 5. So when the sacred months have passed away, then slay the idolaters wherever you find them, and take them captives, and besiege them, and lie in wait for them in every ambush. Then if they repent and keep up prayer and pay the poor rate, leave their way free to them. Quran Book 9, verse 29. Fight those who believe not in Allah nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden which hath been forbidden by Allah and His Messenger, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, even if they are Jews, until they pay the blood money with willing submission, and feel themselves subdued. Quran Book 9, verse 30. And the Jews say, Ezra is the son of Allah, and the Christians say the Messiah is the son of Allah. These are the words of their mouths. They imitate the saying of those who disbelieved before. May Allah destroy them. How they are turned away. Quran Book 17, verse 16. And when we wish to destroy a town, we send our commandment to the people of it who lead easy lives, but they transgress therein. Thus the word proves true against it, so we destroy it with utter destruction. Quran Book 33, verses 60 to 62. If the hypocrites and those in whose hearts is a disease and the alarmists in the city do not cease, we verily shall urge thee on against them, then they will be your neighbours in it but a little while. Accursed, they will be seized wherever found, and slain with a fierce slaughter. Bukhari 52:177. Allah's Apostle said, "The hour will not be established until you fight with the Jews, and the stone behind which a Jew will be hiding will say, 'O Muslim, there is a Jew behind me, so kill him.'" Bukhari 52:256. The Prophet was asked whether it was permissible to attack the pagan warriors at night with the probability of exposing their women and children to danger. The Prophet replied, "They, the women and children, are from them." Bukhari 52:220. Allah's Apostle said, "I have been made victorious with terror." Tabari 7:97. The morning after the murder of Ashraf, the Prophet declared, "Kill any Jew who falls under your power." Tabari 9:69. Killing unbelievers is a small matter to us. Ibn Ishaq Hisham 327. Allah said, "A prophet must slaughter before collecting captives. A slaughtered enemy is driven from the land. Muhammad, you crave the desires of this world, its goods and the ransom captives would bring. But Allah desires killing them to manifest the religion."
If you had to share a short message with people listening that will watch this, whether in America or Andrea or Jewish people, what would you like to tell them?
Mainly Americans, God Almighty has given you the grace. Whatever you do in America influences everybody in the world. You have that grace. One thing that Islam is doing to defeat you is causing you to be coward and fearful, to stand up and speak against the invasion of Islamization which is going on in your country. Stand up before it's late. North Africa is the part of Africa which first embraced Christianity. It was defeated by intimidation and threat. If you get afraid today, within time, you will find your children and your grandchildren being Muslims and torturing other people. Stand up now and defeat the challenge of the global Islamization agenda. And that is what I'm telling even Christians. We speak as Christians today, talk about places like Ephesians, the letter of Paul to Ephesians. What is Ephesians right now? Check the place and see. They don't have a church. Check the place of the church of Antioch. Where was it? Check the places of all these places where Simon Peter and preached the gospel. Paul went on with his missionary journeys. You will find that Islam has got a challenge which is on a door, and instead of standing up, we are not going to stand up in arms, but we are going to stand up in the Word of God. Let's not fear to open up and stand and speak the truth. Otherwise, if we don't stand now, it will be too late within coming years. One thing which I want to leave with you, all of people watching me, is that if you know that what you are doing is right, stand boldly and proclaim it. Don't fear. The spirit of darkness use intimidation. Don't be intimidated. People fear to die, but Jesus said, "Do not fear those who kill the flesh." He knew they would try to kill us. And Jesus said, "Whatever message I give you underneath the bed, stand at the roof and declare it." That means Jesus knew that we will be intimidated, and he did not tell us only to run, but he said, don't fear them. The word "don't fear" is more clear in the book of Matthew chapter 10. And when Peter was persecuted and intimidated, what happened? The Bible says he was scourged in the book of Acts of the Apostles. He was beaten. But Peter said, "I cannot stop to speak what I have heard and what I have seen." Ladies and gentlemen, it's a high time. If it is the truth, let's stand and speak it. If we are the light of the world, it's the time we shine before it's late. God bless you. Thank you very much.
I got to get one more thing, because that was very powerful. We're going to show this to a lot of Jewish people in America. What's your challenge to Jewish people to support Israel?
The Jewish people, I am a former Muslim, have no doubt about that. I hated Israel even before knowing where it is found on a map. The challenge between the fight and the hatred against Israel is more so of a religious motivated thing than a political. You must know there are some people standing somewhere in the places of worship brainwashing people that the nation of Israel has no right to exist. When you give them Gaza, they will need East Jerusalem. You give them East Jerusalem, they will need Jerusalem. You give them Jerusalem, they will take Tel Aviv. You will have no state. What I'm saying is that don't sell your land for peace. Stand and resist the evil. Stand with your nation. You must have a nation. I was a Muslim. I'm speaking the truth. The teaching of Islam does not see Israel on the map. They don't teach that there is a nation called Israel. So for every child who is coming up, he's working for the destruction of this nation. There are a few others who are not, but they are working for this destruction. So you give them a leg, they will take a waist, and you give them a waist, they will take a chest, and then they will take a head. Let's stand for the truth. If it is truth, stand for it, and the God of the Bible will defend your land.
I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. It's practiced freely by many millions of Americans, and by millions more in countries that America counts as friends. Its teachings are good and peaceful.
At the same time, we have reaffirmed again and again that the United States is not and never will be at war with Islam. Islam teaches peace. Muslims the world over aspire to live with dignity and a sense of justice. And when it comes to America and Islam, there is no us and them, there is only us, because millions of Muslim Americans are part of the fabric of our country. So we reject any suggestion of a clash of civilizations.
In the New Testament of the Bible.